I don't know when exactly I became the background noise in my own family. Probably sometime around my third, temporary, night shift and my mom's 40th. We'll get you next time. On rent money. But that's the thing about slow burn neglect. You don't notice it until you've been simmering in it for years. And by the time you do, you're too tired to scream. You just stir the pot and hope someone eventually tastes it. My name's Eli Foster. I'm 28, and for the last 8 years, I've been working nights to support my family. The same family that hasn't asked me how I'm doing since Obama was in office. And even then, I think they were more worried about gas prices than my GPA. See, when I was 19, I dropped out of community college after Dad tweaked his back lifting an old grill he found, on sale, at someone else's yard. Mom's hours got cut at the salon. My older brother bailed to go find himself, in Colorado, sell weed with a man named Spinner, and my sister married a chiropractor who thinks almond milk is a scam but still charges $300 to crack your neck. That left me. The dependable one. The quiet one. The guy who learned to budget ramen and dog food in the same grocery haul. I got a job stocking shelves at Marlowe's Market on the night shift. Thought it'd be a short gig, just until we got our feet under us. Then the furnace broke, then the car needed tires, then Dad discovered Amazon Prime. Suddenly, I wasn't just helping. I was holding everything up. I didn't complain. Much. Okay, sometimes I'd rant to my buddy Cam on our smoke breaks behind the store. But even then, it was mostly sarcastic. They should really put professional son on my name tag. I joke, wiping condensation off my forehead with an empty receipt. You ever think about just not paying their bills? Cam once asked. Only when I'm wide awake and crying into my pillow at 4 a.m. Because here's the thing, I loved them. Truly. Dysfunction and all. Mom always tried to make the house feel warm, even when the thermostat said 60 and I was wrapped in 2 hoodies and a resentment blanket. She'd cook dinner when she could, which meant microwaving pasta and calling it al dente. Dad watched a lot of war documentaries and shouted trivia like a retired Jeopardy contestant with unresolved dreams. And even though I paid the rent, the electric, the groceries, and most recently the vet bills for our ungrateful Chihuahua Peanut, who bit me twice last month, I still held on to this hope. This ridiculous, naive hope that one day my dad would look at me and say, "Hey Eli, I'm proud of you." I know, right? The bar was low enough to trip over. I didn't need balloons or a big speech. I just wanted one sentence. 1 ounce of recognition that my sleepless nights and cracked knuckles meant something to someone who wasn't actively draining my bank account. But praise? In our house, it was reserved for people like Jordan, my older brother, who once posted a photo of his homemade kombucha and got a "So proud of your creativity" from Dad within minutes. I posted about getting promoted to lead night supervisor and got a thumbs up 3 days later. I still remember the time I bought groceries and Mom said, "You're such a good little helper." Like I was a golden retriever that figured out how to carry in bags. Helper. Not provider. It always felt like that. Like I wasn't the man holding the house together, just a quiet shadow in the background. The family in turn. No benefits. Still, I told myself it'd be worth it. That someday, something would click. That all the years of showing up, working nights, fixing leaks, unclogging toilets, and sacrificing my 20s for them would pay off. Maybe in love. Maybe just in gratitude. But mostly, I just wanted not to feel invisible. And then one Thursday morning, bleary-eyed from another overnight shift, I walked into the kitchen, and everything shifted. But I'll get to that. First, let me tell you what it feels like to live 8 years as a ghost in your own home. Thursday mornings were always the worst. There's something about coming home when everyone else is waking up, like the world's moving forward while you're unraveling in reverse. I used to call it the vampire hour. Except instead of blood, I lived off vending machine coffee and discounted day-old sandwiches from the deli fridge. That morning, my spine felt like it had been replaced with wet rope. My name tag had fallen off somewhere between aisle 6 and the mop closet, and my feet hurt like they'd walked through someone else's regret. I trudged into the kitchen, past the leaning tower of unopened mail and a growing pile of recyclables no one ever actually recycled. Peanut the Chihuahua lifted his head, blinked once like he was disappointed in me, and resumed licking his own butt. I grabbed a mug from the sink, not clean, just less disgusting than the others, and filled it with cereal because, of course, the bowls were gone. Mom uses them for her succulent hospital, a windowsill war zone of sad, dusty plants she rescues from clearance shelves and forgets about 2 days later. I sat down, exhaled, and stared into the abyss of my $2 breakfast like it owed me answers. Then my dad walked in. Now, my dad's morning presence could best be described as looming disappointment in socks. He never made eye contact before noon, shuffled like someone who believed house slippers were a birthright, and had mastered the art of passive grunting. He moved like a man with secrets, specifically secrets about where all the forks keep disappearing to. He yawned without covering his mouth, scratched his chest, and went straight to the toaster like I didn't exist. "Morning," I offered. No response. "Hey, heads up, we're out of bread. Used the last slice yesterday." Still nothing. Then he opened the empty bag, confirmed I wasn't lying, and finally, like an old modem connecting to the internet, he turned and hit me with it. "You know, Eli, you've never really done anything worth praising." It wasn't even said with malice. Just factually. Like he was commenting on the weather. Cloudy with a chance of total character assassination. I stared at him. Not blinking. Not breathing. Just absorbing it. Because the worst part wasn't the words. It was how casually he tossed them out. Like they'd been sitting on his tongue for years, and he finally got around to saying them now that the toast situation was dire. He walked off with a freezer pancake and not an ounce of self-awareness, leaving me in the kitchen, half-dressed, half-alive, and suddenly very, very awake. I didn't yell. Didn't ask for clarification. Didn't defend myself with a monologue about the nights I worked through fevers or the months I made rent when he was too proud to file for disability. I didn't remind him that the reason he had a functioning back brace, working AC, and toothpaste that wasn't from a motel supply closet was me. I just sat there and let the silence spread. And as I sat, a wave of micro-memories crashed over me. The time he bragged about Jordan's entrepreneur spirit, because he was selling essential oils from a tent in Arizona. The time I paid the entire electric bill out of my own tips, and he said, "Don't act like you did us a favor." The time I got promoted to assistant night manager, and he joked, "Is that even a real title?" Every small cut. Every dismissed win. Every compliment I never got. And it all condensed into that one moment. Him, chewing a microwaved pancake, and me, suddenly realizing I'd given my entire 20s to a family that thought I was a shadow with a debit card. So I stood up. Put my mug in the sink. Grabbed my keys from the hook, the same hook I installed when no one else bothered to fix the broken one, and walked toward the door. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I didn't even pack a bag. I just left. Walked out of that house, out of that unpaid role as emotional janitor, and into the morning sun like someone who'd finally clocked out for good. And here's the thing, no one followed me. Not that day. Not the next. Not until the silence started costing them. I didn't go far. I didn't hop on a plane to Bali or start a soul-searching hike across Colorado like Jordan did that one time he watched an inspirational video on YouTube and thought he was the second coming of Bear Grylls. I just went to Cam's. Cam lived in a 2-bedroom above a laundromat that always smelled like lavender dryer sheets and regret. He had a pull-out couch that felt like sleeping on a tortilla chip, but it was quiet. And more importantly, no one in that apartment looked me in the eye and told me I was useless before 8 a.m. "You good?" Cam asked after I walked in with nothing but my wallet, keys, and the same hoodie I'd worn for 3 consecutive shifts. "Yeah," I said, and then immediately borrowed his shower for 40 minutes like a sad raccoon trying to feel something. The first night, I didn't sleep. Not because the couch was lumpy, though, let's be honest, it had the spine of a dying caterpillar, but because I kept waiting for the call. Or a text. "Where are you?" Or even a half-hearted, "Did you pick up creamer?" But nothing came. The next day? Same thing. By day 3, I stopped checking my phone entirely. Instead, I got back to work. Picked up some extra shifts at Marlowe's. Drove Uber after midnight. Started freelancing simple website designs for local businesses during my off hours. A skill I taught myself 2 years ago that Dad once described as weird computer stuff. I wasn't planning to reinvent myself. I wasn't suddenly thriving. But for the first time in years, I felt unburdened. Nobody depending on me. Nobody assuming I'd magically refill the gas tank, fridge, and family dignity without thanks. And ironically, my budget stretched further. Because guess what happens when you're not paying for everyone else's Amazon Prime hauls and accidental, pay-per-view movie purchases? You breathe. Meanwhile, back at the Foster household, things were starting to unravel. I didn't hear about it directly, of course. But small details leaked in. Chloe texted me out of nowhere. "Hey, random, but do you know when Mom pays the electric bill?" They called me? I stared at that message for a solid minute before replying. "Not my job anymore." She didn't respond. A week later, I got a message from the landlord's office, the same lady who'd known me by name for 6 years. "Eli, just checking in. Haven't received rent for the Fosters this month. Is everything okay?" I typed, deleted, retyped. Settled on. "You'll have to ask them." That's when I knew they hadn't noticed I was gone. Not really. Not until the bills started piling up like soggy takeout menus. I imagined the scene. Dad sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid utilities, trying to figure out why the water heater stopped working and why Netflix suddenly logged him out. Mom scrambling to remember which credit card had space left. Peanut, probably chewing a sock with the same smug face as always. It was funny, in a twisted kind of way. For years I was invisible. A ghost who haunted the family's finances. And now, in my absence, I was more present than ever. Because here's what happens when the ghost leaves. The walls creak. The lights flicker. And the ones who ignored you start whispering your name, not because they miss you, but because they miss what you did for them. And I hadn't even gotten started yet. The first message came 12 days after I walked out. It was from Mom. Subject line: none. Body: "Hey sweetheart. Haven't heard from you. Hope everything's okay. We've all been a little off lately. Let's talk soon, okay?" No mention of the insult. No apology. Just the digital equivalent of a casual pat on the head, like I'd wandered off for a soda and forgotten my way home. I didn't respond. Kim asked me that night if I was planning to. I just shook my head. She still thinks this is a phase. Like I'm sulking in my room because they forgot to record my favorite show. By week 3, the tone had shifted. Dad texted me a photo of a shut-off notice. "Did you cancel autopay for the utilities? We're a little confused here." Ah, yes. We. The royal we. The passive-aggressive. "Oops. Did our unpaid bills interrupt your peace?" tone. I ignored it. That's when Chloe finally called. She never called. She was the type to send voice notes that started with, "Sorry for the chaos, babe," and ended with a yoga link. I let it ring. She tried again. Then sent a voicemail that opened with a long sigh. "Eli, look, we know you're upset. But this whole disappearing act, it's not fair. We're family. We all have stuff going on. You can't just shut down because of one little comment." One little comment. It always amazed me how people who never acknowledged your pain could rank it for you. You get screamed at? You're being dramatic. Get ignored for a decade? You're sensitive. Sacrifice your 20s and walk away without a word? Now you're the villain. I didn't respond to her either. Instead, I made a spreadsheet. Color-coded. Column A, monthly expenses I used to cover. Column B, dates I stopped paying. Column C, incoming guilt attempts. It was a full-time job just tracking the emotional boomerangs they kept throwing. But the more I documented, the clearer it became. They didn't miss me. They missed the perks. They missed the man who fixed the broken toilet at 2 a.m. The guy who always figured out dinner when payday got delayed. The walking human buffer between crisis and consequences. And now? Now they had to learn how to live without the invisible glue that held their entire lives together. The final straw came when the Wi-Fi cut out. I only know this because Cam and I were at the bar watching a game when Jordan, yes, even he emerged from the desert, messaged me on Facebook of all places, asking if I'd changed the Wi-Fi password. I told him I hadn't lived there in a month. He asked, "Wait, what happened?" I told him Dad hit me with the now iconic breakfast line, "You've never done anything worth praising." His response? Just one word. Damn. Then he asked if the family was screwed financially. I said, "Define screwed." He said, "Like, no electricity, no food." I told him, Define. That was the last time he texted. But I imagined the phone calls that must have followed. The flurry of blame, confusion, and panicked Googling of how to budget and what happens when the fridge turns off. Cam and I toasted to that. Clinked our beers. Cheers to financial ghosting. The knock came on a Sunday. I was making instant ramen and blasting classic soul music like a man with no responsibilities and a $7 meal plan. Cam was at his girlfriend's. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, and most importantly, guilt-free. So naturally, when I heard 3 soft knocks, my first thought was Amazon. But it wasn't Amazon. It was Mom. Standing in the hallway like a real-life plot twist in a pastel cardigan. She had sunglasses on, despite being indoors, and clutched her purse like it might float away if she didn't hold tight enough. "Sweetheart," she said, all breathy like a character from a 90s soap opera. "There you are." I didn't say anything. Just stepped back and let the door hang open. She walked in like she was allergic to eye contact. Gave a little glance around the place, probably horrified at the lack of decorative mason jars and inspirational quote signs. "I've been calling," she said. "I've been ignoring," I replied, casually stirring my noodles. She sighed. "This is ridiculous. You're acting like we cast you out or something." I tilted my head. "Didn't invite me back in either." She sat down on the edge of the couch like it might bite her. "Listen, I didn't come here to fight. Your dad regrets what he said." "Oh?" I said, pretending to be shocked. "Did he say that? Or did you say that for him?" Her silence answered that. "He's been stressed. Things are tight." "Things have always been tight," I said. "I was just the one tying the knot every month." She didn't deny it. Just pulled a crumpled envelope out of her purse and slid it onto the table like it was a secret peace treaty. Inside, a $200 check. I stared at it. Then at her. "You came here to give me money?" I asked. She straightened. "To help. Just until you figure things out." I let out a single laugh, not mean, just amazed. "That's rich. You don't have to be sarcastic," she said. "No," I said. "I really do. Because here's the thing, for years, they told me I had to earn everything. That nothing was handed to me. And now, after I left, they tried to hand me $200 like that was enough to patch 8 years of silence, and missed birthdays and frozen pancakes. "Do you even know where I work?" I asked her. She hesitated. "Do you know what I've been doing since I left?" Silence. "Do you know what I like? What I care about?" More silence. Then finally, "I know you've always been there when we needed you." "That's the problem," I said. "You needed me. But you never saw me." She looked up then, really looked, and for the first time, I saw it, not guilt. Not sadness. Just fear. Because she knew the truth. I wasn't coming back. Not to save them. Not to clean up. Not to be their backup plan. "I'm not mad," I said, standing. "I'm done." She left the check on the table. I dropped it in the trash after she closed the door. That night, Kim came home, saw the empty envelope, and raised an eyebrow. "You good?" "Better than I've been in years," I said. Because that visit? That wasn't a reunion. That was a confession. They finally knew what life looked like without me in it. And they didn't like the view. It took my dad exactly 29 days to acknowledge I was gone. Not in words. Not directly. That would have required something foreign to him, accountability. No, his way of reaching out came via a forwarded email. No subject. No message. Just a printout, slipped under Cam's apartment door, folded in thirds like a bank statement. The contents? A screenshot of a GoFundMe. Title: Help the Fosters recover from a financial crisis. The goal was $5,000. They'd raised $60. Cam laughed for a full 30 seconds. Bro. They're crowdsourcing what you used to cover solo. I didn't laugh. Not because it wasn't funny, it was darkly hilarious, but because part of me already knew they'd reach for the internet before they reached for introspection. The description on the page was the best part. After a series of unexpected hardships, our family is struggling to stay afloat. We're reaching out to our community during this difficult time. Translation? Our invisible son left, and now nobody knows how to pay a water bill without emotionally blackmailing strangers. Still, I didn't say a word. Didn't share it. Didn't call them out. Just screenshotted it and saved it in a folder called Delusional Moments. But the universe wasn't done. 3 days later, I opened the front door and found my dad standing there like a man summoned by a passive-aggressive genie. Gray hoodie. Basketball shorts. That same distant look in his eyes, the one he used to get when the cashier asked him to split a transaction between 2 cards. He didn't ask if he could come in. He just did. I leaned against the kitchen counter while he looked around the apartment, taking in the chaos: ramen wrappers, thrift store dishes, a sad-looking basil plant we'd both given up on. "You been here the whole time?" he asked. "Yep." He nodded, like I'd just confirmed a rumor about local wildlife. Then he sat on the edge of the couch, same spot Mom did, and exhaled hard. Not like he was tired. More like he wanted me to ask why he looked tired. I didn't. "You really not coming back?" he asked finally. "Nope." He rubbed his jaw. "You mad about what I said?" I gave him a look. The kind that says there are 400 reasons why I left, and that line was just the final push. But all I said was, "I'm not mad. I just don't need to prove myself anymore." He blinked like I'd spoken in Morse code. For a man who memorized entire Civil War documentaries, he had an impressive talent for forgetting every sacrifice I ever made. "You were always the quiet one," he said. "Hard to know what you were thinking." "I was thinking about how to keep the power on," I said. "About how to cover your overdraft fees. About how to fix the water heater without making you feel like I was showing off." He looked away. "I didn't know it meant that much to you," he mumbled. "It didn't," I said. "It meant everything." There was a pause. A long one. One of those pauses that stretches across years and cracked ceilings, and every time I sat alone in that kitchen with bills spread across the table, and no one asking how I was doing. "I didn't mean it, you know," he said. "Doesn't matter. I was just frustrated." "Still doesn't matter." He stood up then. Walked to the door. For a second, I thought he was going to say something meaningful. Maybe, "I'm sorry." But what he said was, "You know, we could still use your help. Just until we get back on our feet." I smiled. Not cruelly. Not sarcastically. Just tired. "You had my help for 8 years," I said. "Now you can have the silence." Then I closed the door behind him. No drama. No yelling. Just the soft sound of boundaries being built. The kind no one else needed to hear, because this time, they weren't for them. It's strange how quiet life gets when no one's relying on you to mop up their mess. For the first time in years, I didn't start my day by checking a dozen unpaid bills or stress scrolling through overdraft notices like a financial trauma journal. I started my day with coffee. On a couch that wasn't secondhand. In socks that didn't have holes. I even bought a lamp, a weird, vintage one from a flea market that Kem swore looked haunted. I loved it anyway. Maybe because it was mine. I was still working, of course. Freelance gigs, some night shifts at Marlowe's when I felt like it. But it felt different now. I wasn't patching holes in a sinking ship, I was building something. Slow, imperfect, mine. I stopped waiting for calls. And after a while, they stopped trying. No texts. No updates. No veiled guilt bombs. Silence. And I was okay with that. Then, one afternoon, I came home from work and found a letter slipped under the door. No envelope. No stamp. Just folded paper with my name written in blue ink across the top. Inside, a handwritten note from Chloe. And a check. $1,500. The note read, Eli, I know you don't want to hear from us. But I get it now. I really do. Jordan told me what happened. What Dad said. I'm sorry I let you carry all of it for so long. I never meant to be part of the silence. This isn't payback. It's just a start. You don't have to respond. I just wanted you to know. See. I sat down on the floor right there in the hallway. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. Because for 8 years, I carried that house, not just financially, but emotionally. And this was the first time anyone had even named it. Acknowledged the weight. The work. The damage. I didn't cash the check. But I didn't throw it away either. I pinned it to my corkboard, next to a list of freelance goals and a photo of me and Cam at a bowling alley looking like two sleep-deprived raccoons in rented shoes. A couple days later, Cam and I were on the couch eating leftover wings when he nudged me with his phone. Dude, he said. You need to see this. He held out the screen. It was a Facebook post. From my mom. Just text. No photo. No tags. We all make mistakes. Some bigger than others. I've learned the hard way that silence can cost more than money ever could. Proud of the man you've become, Eli. I read it twice. Then a third time. It wasn't an apology, exactly. It wasn't even sent to me. But it was something. Cam raised his eyebrows. Whoa. I shrugged. But inside? Something moved. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the start of it. Not for them, for me. I didn't call her. Didn't send a thank you. Didn't even like the post. But I screenshotted it. Saved it in the same folder I'd once used to track their unpaid bills. A digital scrapbook of all the ways they were starting to see what they'd overlooked. And that was worth more than money. It was a shift. A crack in the wall between me and the family I'd carried like a shadow on my back. And now? It wasn't about fixing things. It was about living without dragging them behind me. 6 months later, I got a promotion. Led operations manager at a local warehouse startup. Good pay. Normal hours. Actual benefits. When HR handed me the offer letter, I didn't cry. I just folded it neatly and walked out to my car like it was any other Tuesday, because after everything I'd carried, relief felt quiet. I didn't tell my family. Not out of spite. Not anymore. I just didn't need them to know. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I didn't need a Facebook post or a "we're so proud" text to validate a single thing. I had what I needed, a job that didn't drain me, a fridge full of my own groceries, and a couch that didn't double as a panic nap zone. Cam bought a 6-pack that night, and we celebrated by watching bad 90s action movies. He paused halfway through to ask, "You ever think you'll talk to them again?" I shrugged. Maybe. Just maybe? Depends. On them. On me. On whether they ever figured out how to set up autopay. We laughed. But the truth? I had thought about it. Not going back, that part was done. But maybe reconnecting, eventually. On different terms. Real ones. Without guilt-tripping or financial strings or birthday invitations that felt like obligations. But I wasn't chasing it. Because I'd spent years chasing people who saw me as a resource, not a person. And now that I had space to breathe, I wasn't rushing to fill it. I ran into Chloe again a few months later. At the grocery store, of all places. We both reached for the same overpriced granola like it was fate's idea of a joke. She looked better, calmer. Her eyes didn't dodge like Mom's. She didn't try to hug me or cry or apologize all over again. She just said, "You look good." I said, "So do you." Then we both awkward laughed at the granola and went our separate ways. It was weird. But not bad. After that, I got an email from Jordan. Short. Simple. Told Dad he should have said sorry when it mattered. Hope you're good. Jay. I never replied. Not because I was angry. Just because I was content. And when my birthday rolled around, for the first time in years, I didn't check my phone waiting for their messages. I didn't care if the notifications popped up or not. I went out with Cam. We ate burgers. He got me a card that said, "Congrats on not bailing your family out this year," with a little cartoon of a guy holding up a mountain. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped a fry. Later that night, sitting on the balcony with the city lights blinking in the distance, I realized something that felt weirdly big, like the kind of thought that sneaks up on you while you're sipping cheap beer in an old hoodie. I didn't want praise anymore. Not from them. Not from anyone. Because I already knew what I'd done. What I'd survived. What I'd built. And it was enough. No applause needed.